Peter Vincent joins me now for more on this. He's the former U.S. Department of Justice and U.S. Embassy attaché in Colombia. Peter, you know so much about this story. 52-year war, more than 200,000 dead, 6 million people displaced, 4 years of negotiations, and we've gotten to this point. But it is not a done deal yet. What's going to happen when they put this up to a referendum and the Colombian people reject it?
Asieh, you're precisely right. It's not a done deal yet. They have to have this vote, the referendum, that will probably take place in October. Just before that, they'll have a formal signing of the peace accords, probably on September 23rd. Then the people of Colombia, after 50 years of bloodshed and violence and human trafficking and forced disappearances, will have the opportunity to be heard. It's going to be extraordinarily close. 3 weeks ago, polls showed that only 40% of the Colombian population supported the peace accords.
Does that surprise you? Why only 40%? This means an end to 50 years of armed conflict.
Asieh, the wounds are so deep. The pain is so searing. The heartbreak is so intense that people are dealing with this on a very emotional level. Virtually everyone in Colombia has been touched either directly or indirectly by this horrific 5 decades old multi-generational war. So I think that what's happening is that people are having a hard time letting go of that emotional, that psychological stress that they feel, having known people who have been displaced, having known people that were kidnapped, and having known people that frankly were murdered by the FARC.
There's going to be a huge campaign to sell this now. Former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe is one of those people who says, no, let's not vote for this. And there are a couple of controversial aspects of this agreement that he seems to be capitalizing on. One of them is that it would allow FARC members who confess their crimes not to serve any jail term. Now, considering the human rights abuses, the kidnappings, that seems to be a hard one for Colombians to swallow.
You're absolutely right, Asieh. And President Álvaro Uribe, who I know quite well and spent a lot of quality time with, who was president from 2002 to 2010, deserves a great deal of credit for pushing the FARC through President Uribe's very, very hard military campaign in the jungles and mountains, pushing the FARC to the negotiation table. He is now dead set against this for the reasons that you've articulated. And what's frankly sad is that his former Secretary or Minister of Defense, the current President, Juan Manuel Santos, who I also know quite well, is the largest proponent of this peace accord. President Uribe's father was murdered by the FARC in 1983. He's simply unable to reconcile that pain and that loss in his personal life with the better thing to happen to the Colombian people. So what will happen is that the high-ranking leaders of the FARC who did engage in war crimes or crimes, atrocities, will face actual pretty significant and serious penalties, including jail time. The lower-ranking, rank and file, the foot soldiers of the FARC, so long as they lay down their weapons, they confess their crimes, and they engage in a peaceful process of reconciliation, they will escape jail time.
Okay, let's talk about the weapons. What's going to happen to stockpiles and stockpiles of weapons? And can realistically, Peter, FARC exist as an unarmed political movement?
There is a great deal of distrust as a result of this 50 years of war between the government of Colombia and the FARC. What the government of Colombia worries is that once the FARC guerrillas, all 7,000 to 8,000 of them, demobilize and disarm, some of them may in fact just bury their weapons in the mountains and in the jungles for future use. On the other hand, the FARC is very worried that even in the protected zones, if they disarm and they are therefore weaponless, that they may be vulnerable to individuals that may want to carry out a bit of retribution for the crimes that the FARC members may have committed. So there's this distrust and there's this uneasiness. What will happen is that the FARC will be given an opportunity to develop a political party and to participate legally in the political process in the democracy of Colombia.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. What's going to happen in this referendum? Will this pass or not? And will it effectively end 50 years of conflict?
Despite Álvaro Uribe's efforts, and he is still very popular and very charismatic, and he will engage in a very passionate effort to scuttle this peace accord, my prediction is that the Colombian people, worn down by 50 years of bloodshed and war, will ultimately pass, will vote for peace forever in Colombia come September, October.
Peter Vincent, thank you so much.
Thank you, Asieh.